beg your pardon. I really couldn't understand your point. What are you questioning me in that point of information? I really couldn't understand. Oh, okay, sorry. Then. Rejected. As the third speaker has argued, we claim allowing these performance enhancement drugs will promote pharmaceutical companies to develop develop the performance enhancement drugs that will not harm these, that will be beneficial to the status quo, not harming these athletes. Ladies and gentlemen, what the opposition is doing is ignoring the status quo. The status quo is, as the third speaker has mentioned, is that there are people who take drugs, and these drugs are possibly extremely dangerous, as mentioned by the opening government, no opposition. And I would like to say that our solution, our motion solve this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, going over to the second clash is whether drugs should be considered as tools, as equal to tools or not. The opposition has argued that it is unhealthy and it is a completely different matter. But ladies and gentlemen, we as the government argue that these drugs are healthy and will be healthier as. Yes?
It is proven that our definition is more superior than yours because we have given specific drug names such as steroids. However, your opening government could not give any specific drug names.
I don't understand the point of information. Even if your definition is right, in our first class, as I mentioned, if we allow this motion to hold, then we will be able to promote better drugs, which is better for the status quo. What is the opposition doing? They're ignoring the status quo. They're neglecting the fact that there are people who take these medicines. Ladies and gentlemen, rejected. Ladies and gentlemen, and also, these tools that they have mentioned are different from these drugs. They also greatly shorten these records. Ladies and gentlemen, aerodynamic suits, they reduce running, swimming records. These wooden bats, aluminum bats instead of wooden bats, they reduced records, ladies and gentlemen. It's not different, it's the same. Going over to the third class, the status quo, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition in all of their speeches is blind to the status quo. They are neglecting the fact, as I repetitively mentioned, that there are people who take these drugs. What the proposition is proposing is to solve this problem, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, I plead you to open your eyes to what is happening now. The modern sports is no longer a competition based on pure human skills. Many performance-enhancing tools, such as clothes, aluminum bats, or uniform with high-tech fabric, etc., exist. And as technology develops, new drugs that can avoid doping tests will be invented. What the opposition is arguing is neglecting the status quo. On the other hand, what we, the government, is proposing is to bring change to the status quo in the way that will benefit the society as a whole. Therefore, today's motion holds. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that speech. I now invite Richard to conclude the case on his side and the debate as a whole.
Thank you. I'm the second speaker for the closing opposition in this debate and the last speaker for this debate, in which the motion was this House would allow the use of performance-enhancing drugs in sports. Well, before explaining, giving the clashes, why the closing opposition won in the main clashes, I would like to clarify the closing opposition's stance in this debate. We are an opposition. Our job is to disagree with the government. The government's proposed motion was, in their own words, not restricting drugs. And we do not agree, and we are giving an alternative that opposes this by creating two leagues. And we believe the closing proposition was confused in what opposition is and what opposition is not. And after clarifying that point, I would like to move on to the main clashes in this debate. Well, our side has four. First, on the problem of drug itself. Is this problem viable? Well, the proposition bench case itself was based on some kind of major assumption. The assumption that there is a magical drug that is very cheap, proven to have no side effects, perfectly non-addictive, has just the right amount to take, and increases the player's abilities just the right amount, so spectators are really satisfied. But because they simply could not find such a drug, they finally said that such drugs will be developed in the future. This is a great assumption to base their entire case on, ladies and gentlemen, and reality is harsh. The closing proposition even made a glaring contradiction in their speech. They actually conceded that there were harms. So this just goes where the opposing bench is going with this problem of drugs. Now, on to the second clash. Well, tools or drugs. Well, the proposition made great examples with all those, well, performance-enhancing boots or, well, scarves, headgear, everything, but it all just boils down to the simple difference. External, internal. Does it really matter with the player, or is the things that the player really wears or uses? This is a simple difference, and we beg that the judges consider whether it is common logic or not, whether truth and drugs are different or the same. And going on to the third clash. Well, which side promoted true freedom in this debate? True freedom. The freedom that the proposition proposed in this debate is not true freedom, but rather a dreadful enforcement, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because, well, say there is a player that doesn't want to take drugs, but everyone around him is taking it. So everyone's records increase. So he's left out in the competition. He's going to go out to die. So is this a choice, ladies and gentlemen? He either has to take this drug or has to be some overpowered Superman to compete with the players that take drugs. So is this really a choice or an enforcement, ladies and gentlemen? Our alternative proposes the real freedom in this debate. We let them make a choice. We let the consumers make the choice. We let the players make a choice. And they are all distributed accordingly. They're all fair because, well, according to their preferences, they're divided and they can compete equally. No, thank you. So this is kind of the freedom that we really need in a modern democratic society, not this kind of enforcement that the proposition proposes. And moving on to the final clash. Which solution is better, ultimately, in this debate? Which is more democratic? Which is more logically fair? Which is more closer to the ideal we pursue? Well, to the question of which is more democratic, we have already shown you the closing opposition's first speaker has already conclusively proven to you that this is the most democratic system that we could come up. Yes.
Could the opposition would please explain how their alternative opposes today's motion?
The closing proposition obviously does not understand what an opposition means in this debate. We do not agree. We are going with an alternative that is different from what the government has proposed today, and we believe that is exactly what an opposition is. We do not agree. We propose a different thing. Is that not enough? This is an opposition. We are just assimilating some of the values and appreciating some of the arguments that we thought were good, but we are still opposing because this is a different argument. We just cannot understand how the proposition fails to understand the difference between accepting some of their arguments and conceding with the government team as a whole. So thank you, and moving back into our points. Which is more logically fair? Which is more closer to the ideal we pursue? This is the ideal we pursue. To let the players make a choice, to make the consumers make a choice, to get as close as possible to what everyone really wants, to get the perfect balance, to create an equilibrium where everyone can be at least the most happy as we can be. This is the alternative we are proposing, and for all these reasons, throughout this debate, we feel that the closing opposition has been superior. Thank you.